we talk about experience being important. If you don't have it, if you've got it, you think it's not important. But my first Olympics, I think my value was 1 on a 15-point scale. I enjoyed it very much. I loved all the people. I went around to a lot of people, enjoyed every country's swims, till I finally realized that all they care about is beating us. And I don't take that badly, because I know if you're not any good, nobody cares about you. It's because we're so good, everybody enjoys it when we get beat or if they beat us. So that was my biggest eye-opener on that trip. Barcelona was different. Korea, we walked to the swim meet. In Barcelona, we took a long bus ride. So we had a lot of time to get to know each other, and it was a lot more enjoyable that way. And I had Tom Jager and Matt Biondi on that trip, and I didn't have much to do. They were great. One of the neatest things that happened on that trip is Tom Jager had stayed in the sport for 4 more years to try to win the 50, and he didn't. And 5 minutes after he finished the 50, he was up in the stands leading cheers. And it's something, if you're going to really be as good as you can be as a coach or as a swimmer, there are times you have to learn to forget yourself and put everybody else ahead of yourself. Very difficult to do, and the younger you are, the more difficult it is to do. In '96, my goal was to either be a television announcer for swimming or buy a big screen TV and watch it from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. because I love every sport in the Olympics. And if you're there training twice a day, swimming twice a day, you don't get to see it. The head coach of that team was Skip Kinney, who is, after that meet, in my mind, Mr. Inspiration or Mr. Motivation. He just did a phenomenal job. He was on top of everything. And it was great for me to see the effect of that, because I'm kind of an objective, logical, middle of the roader. And you got to get off that every once in a while, and because it's important to others. So you got to forget yourself again. The most important thing in a team atmosphere, any team, especially as they get older, is to work at taking care of each other. And the team in 2004 set a standard that the 2008 team did equal, but 2004, they had to do it with no real past experience. We worked at taking care of each other, and they just did a phenomenal job. My biggest disappointment in 2004 was, one, I had to do a press conference every night at the end of the meet, and we got our 400 free relay, we got beat there. I was sitting in there, and we were asked, is that a big disappointment? Will that make the team be down on itself? I was about ready to answer that, and Neil Walker nudged me. Neil and Jason were in for the free relay, and Neil said, I'll take that. I said, please. And he just said, that's what sport's about. That's the way it is. Just like here, it doesn't matter who's planned to make certain teams. You got to show up and do it. And Neil made a real good point. He said 3 or 4 days later, we'd probably win that free relay. And I really believe we would have. But the press at that, every time I go in there, I'd try my country music lines, and they didn't get it. They didn't know what country music was. They didn't even get my favorite line, which is out of a country song. It's, how do you kiss those lips at night after they've been chewing your ass all day long? And they didn't get that. I was up there laughing to myself. The woman producing the press conference was laughing. The press just sitting there saying, can we get some real person up here? So I love to make people laugh, and they didn't get it. Well, I know after 2008, everybody wanted to know if I coached Michael Phelps. I got tired of trying to explain it to him. I said, oh, yeah, I was responsible for everything. No, I didn't really do that. 2008 was another team like 2004. They took care of each other. People were helping people, even if they were competing in the same event, for medals. And the bugaboo of all Olympics now is the money involved. And it didn't bother them. They just did a super job at doing that. And that's something that I continue to work on and I'll take with me forever. When the USA gets together to compete in swimming, we've got such a tradition of excellence. We're together for weeks before the games. 3 days, we're a very, very good team. Everybody knows everybody. They like each other. The taking care of takes a little longer, but they just do. It's great when I see kids that age give of themselves to help somebody else. Never forget in Korea even, Eric Namesnick and Dave Wharton working on the back to breast turn. Here are two competitors, same event, and they're helping each other. That's just what it's about. That is a big part of the Olympic movement. I do spend about 5 minutes every week wondering what I'm going to do when I grow up. But I know that this is what I love. Honestly, I started out majoring in engineering, grades, test scores, all that stuff, and slowly worked my way to spending a year in a physiology lab and getting a master's and helping with a swimming team and learning. And Don Gambrell, I know he's still tired of me, but I used to grab him at every meeting. We'd sit at the back of the room, and I'd have 1,000 questions for him. And he always took that time for me to help me. So I don't think there's anything else I could do. I know that when I change jobs, I'm not going to retire. I know that's bad for everybody. But when I change jobs, I'll be coaching 11 and 12s and teaching them fly kick off the wall, underwater. The hardest thing to do when you're young is to realize we don't know it all. What are there 3 stages where you think you know it, then you want to know it, you think you know it, then you realize you don't know it. And we never know it because it changes every year for every person. And you've got to be moving with that. And it can never move easier. But my advice is, I tell everybody this, you've got to take care of the athletes first, forget yourself. Because I classify myself as slightly better than average coach. And I do that if you look at my swimmers, not everybody has a great stroke. Not everybody has a great swim. So I'm not that good a coach. But how do you separate yourself since we, as a coach, can't be perfect and make our swimmers perfect? We know that. So we're in the average plus category. How do you help them? And you got to be a good person, make choices in their favor. And when it's right, make them do what's right. There are a lot of decisions kids are given at an early age they shouldn't be given. If you're 15 years old and you're starting to get beaten swimming and somebody you want to stop because you've got bottom of the age groupitis, parents need to step in and say, when you're 16, you can quit. Nobody quits top of their age group. It's too important to let anybody stop or not help them.
In 2004, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization admitted 7 nations from the former Soviet republics. Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake are involved in an incident that makes wardrobe malfunction part of our popular lexicon. Scientists in South Korea announced they've cloned 3 human beings. And the one I love the best, the most distant object in our solar system is identified as a planetoid named Sedna, the largest item identified since Pluto in 1930. FINA immediately offers financial assistance to its swimming federation in order to buy a few more votes in the FINA Congress. In our beloved sport of swimming, Coach Eddie Reese undertakes his second tour of duty as head Olympic coach. Head coach at the University of Texas since 1978, he's coached a very large boatload of USA Olympic swimmers since then, including in recent years 3 world record holders in 3 different strokes in the athletes Ian Crocker, Aaron Pearsall, Brendan Hansen. He's an 8-time NC2A Coach of the Year, 4-time ASCA Coach of the Year. Coach Reese has co-developed 41 individual NCAA champions, 26 Olympians who've won 29 gold medals. One of the most popular coaches clinic speakers in history, Coach Reese has always given generously of his time to help our profession and our sport, in addition to coaching his teams and his own athletes. Selected to the International Swimming Hall of Fame in the year 2002, please welcome head Olympic coach Ed Reese.
Who's Justin Timberlake? Hey, look, this is a phenomenal night for me just to be up here with these guys. I remember Jack Nelson when he was a swimmer on the Olympic team. Back then, he had the greatest fly kick. His feet were pressed together so hard it looked like somebody had used staples to get them together to stay together. And Don Gambrell, I kept Don Gambrell from coming to meetings like this, because if we'd have been in this meeting, I'd have grabbed him at the door, stuck him in a corner, and asked my 1,000 questions a day to him. Don has been my mentor through the whole thing. He has answered every question that I've asked. And I've learned now, not all the answers were right, but I swam in a nationals in the, I don't know, I keep saying it's 57. It may have been 55 in Daytona Beach, Florida, when Stan Tinkham's beautiful women's swimming team was there. And at the age of 14 or 15, I knew what beautiful women were. Those were the ones with bumps. But now I didn't know he was that young. I know now why he had such a good-looking team. Jack Bowerly, friend in so many ways. He takes care of me in a lot of ways. When you don't get to hunt or fish much, you have to hear from somebody that does. And he does. Peter Dalen, I was at an NCAA's one year, and he had a guy that was a triple winner from the previous year named Frank Heckel. Our kind of swimmer, 6'5", 190, 30-inch, 28-inch waist, perfect swimming prototype. The individual medley, which Frank had won the year before, he didn't final. That was back when it was 6-6, the NCAA's. And I was lucky enough to be standing next to Peter when Peter said, "Frank, you can let this continue, or you can stop it and get back on the horse," which Frank did. And Mark Schubert, who I learned more from him than he did from me, and since I'm speaking last, you have to believe that. But he worked at Texas for a number of years, and at that time I learned what real hard work was and what it could do. I went to the women's NCAA's in Indianapolis one year. Mark was coaching the team. I sat in the stand in the prelims, watched the prelims, and came down afterwards. And I told Mark, I said, "You're going to win the meet." Well, he was 90 points down the first day. But I knew that was coming. Those were third events for his swimmers. Even the second day, and won by 90 the last day. So I've got a good history with all these guys, and to coach Olympic teams, be part of that equation has been incredible. In 1992, we had a team with Matt Biondi and Tom Jager, the forerunners of pretty much the way we do it now. And I was picked as head coach so that I could handle them. And they put whatever feelings they had aside and took care of the team. But there was a lot of talk on the team because 1988, Matt Biondi had come second in the 100 butterfly because he made a choice to kick in instead of taking another stroke. And Anthony Nesty won the event. And he went by Matt in his last two strokes and Matt's reach. And the team individuals had talked about this. And first team meeting, we're sitting in somebody's room, 22 or 23 guys. And they wanted the meeting. I sat in the corner and shut up. And it was an incredible meeting. And Matt stood up and talked about that event. And he had put it behind him. But until that time, none of the rest of us had gotten over it for him. And he just took it off our backs so we could talk about it, forget it, because he had moved on, as all great champions will. And another neat Olympic experience, I'm not going to make it.
You're going to make it. Try it again.
Jack, my left ear is totally deaf. But I can still hear him. This past Olympics, we had a good relay. And had I put money on the race, because I'm a very logical person, I'd have taken it off at the 385 and put it on us. But I would have never told anybody that way, and that was the logic side. And Jason Lezak and I had talked a bit, and his words are, nobody swims relays like the U.S. And we set up our order knowing what the French were going to do. We knew what their best relay was, and was with Fred on the end, not Alain. And we set up for that relay. At the last moment, which is almost an hour before the finals start, you have to have your relay cards in. There are no last-minute deals. They changed that relay. And that really didn't change a whole lot. And they made a couple mistakes is all. And we did what we like to do. We like to win the close ones. And that's a credit to everybody that has coached an Olympic team and how you prepare your swimmers. I definitely echo Mark's comments about preparation. You guys do most of the work. We go to the Olympics, we get our $10 a day and all we can eat, and try to get them in the right place and get them headed in the right direction. But every once in a while, I worry about their focus at a time like that. But it comes from me, it doesn't come from them. They do not get lost. I remember a guy named Brad Bridgewater in 1996 swam the last event. He'd had nothing else to swim in the meet. And he kept it together, won the 200 back. And so that people that make this Olympic team are special. People that get them to do the workouts are special too. Thanks for your help. Thanks for the night.